Welcome along to Al's Geek Lab. I hope you're doing fantastic. Today I'm going to show you how to get Ubuntu desktop on a Mac. Not just any Mac, I'm talking about the new Macs, the M1 and M2 Silicon. So as you can see here on my Mac desktop, I have Ubuntu running in a VM. And that is exactly what I'm going to help you with on today's Al's Geek Lab. This video is sponsored by the very wonderful people at PCBWay. PCBWay are the leading electronics and prototyping manufacturer. If you've got an idea, you can use PCBWay to turn it into a reality. PCBWay can build PCBs from just $5 and build them for you in around 24 hours. Now, what I really love is that for people that suck at using a soldering iron, like myself, you can upload your PCB file and have PCBWay assemble it all for you. PCBWay also do 3D printing, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and so much more. They are widely reputed by us in the retro computing community as being the go-to supplier of your PCB needs. So if you've got an idea for an electronics project, why don't you give PCBWay a try at PCBWay.com? After all, that is the PCB way. We thank PCBWay for sponsoring Al's Geek Lab. Now, let's get back to the video. So what you're going to need to do is get two things. The VMware player, which for personal use is free. It's a bit difficult to find, so I'll show you where to find that. And then secondly, I'm going to tell you how to get and install the Ubuntu Server ISO in VMware. So it's basically, it's because you're using Apple Silicon, Ubuntu is not usually devised for that, but there is an ARM version of Ubuntu on the website, so you can see that right here, and I'm going to show you how to make it all work in modern Apple Macintosh with either M1 or M2 Silicon. So hopefully that all makes sense. So let's first of all, I just googled this because I kind of knew what to Google for, but unless you know what to Google for, it's quite difficult. So I typed in how to get VMware Fusion for free Mac. And the top answer, actually, which is not usually the case anymore with Google, the top answer, VMware Fusion Player Personal Use License, is the one that I want, and it gives you this page here. So I'll just see if I can zoom in a little bit. So yeah, you can see this. Fusion Players offers a personal use license available for free with valid customer connect account. Basically that means you have to sign up for an account, which is free. And then you can get the use of it personally. Obviously, if you're using this for business purposes, then you shouldn't be doing this. So yeah, basically, once you've logged in, you've signed up, you can basically download VMware Player for your Mac. So just install VMware Player like you normally would for any other application. I'm not going to go through that. And the same goes for Ubuntu. So when you're on the Ubuntu.com website, usually you can see the Ubuntu desktop, and you click on Ubuntu desktop, and hey, look over here, that looks what I want. Unfortunately, no, that's not what you want, because if you hover your mouse over there and look right down at the very bottom of the link, it's probably quite difficult to see, but when I hover over that download button, this little blue box comes up there. It says https://ubuntu.com/download/ blah 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 blah, and at the end of that line it says architecture equals AMD 64. So it's going to download you an Intel or an AMD processor version of Ubuntu, which is not what you want. You want a version for the M1 or M2 Silicon, which is related to the ARM processor. So these will not work for you, and it's really quite hard to find. But if you click on Server, you can see that there is a number of options, and in the end, you can either Google for it, but it's right down at the bottom of that page on Server. So if you click down here and scroll down here, you can see alternative architectures, and there's one for RISC-V, there's one for IBM Series 390X or Z. There's Power, and there's finally over here on the left there is ARM. That is the one that you want to go to. So if you click on this, you get two options. There's the LTS version, or there is 2304. Now, if you don't know what LTS is, that means long-term support. So if you download this version, It might not have the cutting edge latest features. It was last updated, well, this is the version that was released in 2022, in April of 22, and it's been updated sort of 3 major times since then, so that's the .3 on the end there. Whereas the more recent version of Ubuntu Server is 23.04. Now, the only problem with that one is it's only supported by canonical Ubuntu's makers for about 10 months, I think it is. It's quite short window. So you can upgrade the distro. After that, you can kind of do what I call a rolling release or a rolling distro to keep it up to date. So it'll go up to 23.10, which is actually due out any time. It's the 2nd of October, so it should be released in the next couple of weeks. But regardless, it's not a biggie. You could probably do just fine with the 22.04 one, but for this I have gone and downloaded the 23.04 version, okay? And as you can see, that's already here in my download folder, and you can see I've got it's the .iso file, which is basically like a CD image. So without further ado, I'm going to launch VMware Fusion, and I will go into my virtual machine library, this option here. Alright, so I've got a Kali VM installed already. Let's ignore that. That's just for some other work that I do in the security space. So what I'll do is, you might notice there's a plus button up here, add a virtual machine and folders. I'm going to click on new, and then you can install from disk or image. So that's basically what we're doing right here. We can drag this icon over onto there, simple as that. And then it says choose disk or image. I'm creating an operating system from an image, and then I can click continue, and then it says what capacity, what configuration the machine has. Now, oftentimes I like to change these configurations to suit. For example, it's only giving it 4 gig of RAM. Now, for what you do, you might find that acceptable, but I usually give it a little bit more RAM. My machine has more RAM than that. So you can customize those settings with the customize button. When you click on the customize setting button, you'll notice that it's actually asking you for a place to store them, and it's VMware Player has got a particular folder in your home folder called virtual machines. That's fine, I just usually use that, and I can change this to whatever I want. So let's just call this, yeah, I'll call it 64-bit ARM server, my Ubuntu ARM server, whatever. Okay, and then it'll bring up this box here, which is kind of like a control panel, and it'll allow you to make any changes to the configuration you want. So for example, I like to be able to share folders between my Mac and my Linux machine. So basically you can press plus, and you can go in here and say I'll share this particular folder, but you can share any particular folder, including your entire home folder. But you might not want to do that, because that could put your folders, all your directories at risk. So yeah, choose wisely. The processor, you can choose how speedy a processor you want. So you could go all the way up to 8 processor cores. That's based on my machine here. So I don't know, maybe 4 processor cores if I want extra speed, but you know, that's up to you. You can choose how much RAM you want to give it here. So I think I've got 16 gigs in this particular M2 spec machine. I'll give it a decent amount of RAM. I'll give it 7 gigs. Totally arbitrary number, but you know, I'm just showing you for example here. Now you can set up the display. You can choose accelerated 3D graphics. I'm going to leave that for now. Probably might want to get back to that later on. The Mac network settings probably okay for network adapter. It just shares with the Mac, which uses network address translation, NAT, if you're familiar with what that term means. But basically it should be bidirectional network, and it uses the IP. It has a private IP on the Ubuntu side, and it uses the Mac to kind of talk through that as a kind of router. I won't bore you with the details of how all that works. Hard disk should be fine, but you can give that more capacity if you wanted. So 20 gig might be in your condition a bit miserly. So you know, Ubuntu Server itself is probably going to take up, I don't know, well, how big's the ISO? Let's check. Let's have a look here. It's 2.11 gigs, so once that gets all expanded during the install process, 2 gig is probably going to expand to somewhere around 5-6 gig. So giving it 20 gig, you're probably going to find that you've got like maybe 14 gig free afterwards. So you might want to pop that one up to 35 or 40 gig, you know, something like that. Up to you, entirely up to you. But give it plenty of space for what you might want to do with the machine. You never know how much space you want to give it in the end. That's probably fine as is. Sound cards, usually these are fine. There's nothing that you need to worry about in there. If you want to give it access to the camera, that's fine as well. You can do. All of the rest of the stuff here is probably fine as is. So let's just save those settings by closing there and then pressing the start button with this big arrow. And then hopefully it will just boot up into the installer. So you have a few options here. You can choose, and I'm just using the up and down arrow key here, but you can try or install Ubuntu Server, boot from the next volume, or UEFI firmware in settings. I'm just going to choose the top one there, which is try or install. And we want to install, not try. Awesome. Now this is the new installer for Ubuntu Server. So let's choose our language, I think. Yep. So I guess I would choose English UK mostly, but let's just choose English for today. Update to the new installer. Sure, let's give that a shot. Let's see what happens when we're on a cutting edge. Obviously, it's gone out to the internet already. It's been able to establish a network connection, so that's cool, I guess. I am using a US keyboard, so that's fine. I'll press done. There's an option here to install Ubuntu Server, the full thing, or there's a minimized version. I want to actually install as much as possible because I'm actually going to use this as a desktop, and that's why I'm kind of taking you through this install process as well. So let's click on done there. And by the way, I'm using the keyboard. There is no mouse control because this is the server release of Ubuntu, and that's why it kind of looks bare bones right now. It's found the network address, that's all good. Let's just go with that for now. We don't have a proxy, don't worry about that. It's found that I'm in New Zealand because it's got this nz.ports.ubuntu. Your one will be different depending on which country you're in. This passed all the tests, that's great, press done. Use the entire disk. Remember that I created a 35 gig disk, and you can see that just over there. I can't use the mouse, of course, but I'm pointing, which is totally useless, to the 35 gig, which you can probably see there. All right, so I press the tab key, and I'm just tabbing through these until I get to done at the bottom. Now it's gone green. I'm using the entire disk. Now, if you did want to do something with LVM, for example, you could change those, so you could set up encryption as well. By default, it is using an LVM group. Now, what does that mean? LVM stands for Logical Volume Management, and that just basically, there's a few benefits to LVM, but LVM allows you to grow or reduce the amount of size that the volume, the disk itself takes up, which is quite handy. So, you know, eventually you might want to add another disk. If 35 gig isn't sufficient in size, you might want to add another disk in that's 20 gig or 50 gig or whatever, and add it to that volume, so it's just seen as one logical volume, one disk effectively by the system. So it helps you easily grow the storage on your machine, or reduce if you wanted to do so later on. So that's pretty handy. Let's press done. Now it's just giving you a summary of all the things that's going to happen here, which is the disk stuff, the storage stuff. So it's going to create a new partition called boot, a new one called boot EFI, and at the top there, one called slash, which is the main size of partition. The mount point there you can see is 15.972 gig, which I think is probably a little bit small, to be honest with you. Free space 15 gig. I'm going to see if I can change that. Edit. let's just change this to 20. No, 25, because these ones are 2 gig and 1 gig. Let's just go 25 gig on the nose. Yeah, so basically I've just changed that size there, because 15 gig I thought was maybe, since I've given 35 gig to the whole thing, it rounds down after file system inefficiency, so it got 31.94, 32 gig basically, and it gave a gig to the EFI partition, which is used for booting the system, and the overall boot partition that stores things like the kernel, that's 2 gig, so that's basically, let's just call it just over 3 gig, and the 25 gig to the slash partition. So yeah, I thought that was using 15 gig was a bit small, so you can go down to where it says this one here, Ubuntu LV, and change it using the edit option there and just change the size. It's a lot easier to do this now at install than later on. So that's basically how you change the size, okay, in the device aspect. So I'm just pressing the down arrow key now that I'm happy with the sizes of these partitions. Press done. Are you sure you want to continue? Because we're on a VM, this is only going to destroy these non-created partitions, so don't worry about any of this. I'm going to press continue. My name is Al, my server's name is Ubuntu 2304, I'll just call it Ubuntu, whatever, Ubuntu 1. Pick a username, that's me. Pick a really strong password like password, please don't do that. Press done. Do I want to install the OpenSSH server? In this case I probably do, just so I can SSH into this machine and administer it remotely over my network. You may not want to do that, but let's just go for that. So these are all the things that we can install. Now Ubuntu have gone all out on their snaps thing, which is their new, it's not that new anymore, but it's their new package management system, which some people hate, some people love. But these are sort of things that people would install if they want to install a server. Now my purpose of this is not really to install a server today. It's more I want to install a desktop operating system, so I probably don't need any of this stuff here. But if you feel like you need the AWS, for example, command line tool, that's a possible way to do it. Now bear in mind that apt has not disappeared, it's not gone, so you can still install things via apt if you wanted to. So I'm not going to install anything there, I'm just going to press done. This is the machine going off and doing its thing, it's installing stuff. So I'll come back to you when this system has installed all the stuff, all the things, and let you know what it looks like. Alright, we're back. It didn't actually take too long, so that was good. And now we have the option for viewing the log or rebooting. Obviously I'm just going to reboot the system. So what I want to do right now is shut down the machine rather than just rebooting. And to do that, I will go to virtual machine up here and go to shutdown. And then what I want to do is make sure that the CD-ROM is removed so it doesn't start up from that Ubuntu ISO image that we had here, because we want it just to go to the hard drive. So I'll just go to settings, or I can actually do it from here in the CD/DVD aspect. So I can click on disconnect, and that should be sufficient for what I want to do. Let's click on the play icon, or whatever we want to call it. And this is starting up now from the hard drive, the VM hard drive as it's called. Everything looking good so far, lots of green okays. Yep, and this kind of nonsense that you're seeing here on the screen is probably a first time thing. That's just it setting up its SSH server and cloud init, which is a thing that Ubuntu have made so that you can deploy servers over the cloud, but whatever. Anyway, so I don't know if you can see up the top there, it says Ubuntu 1 login. We're actually at the login prompt there, so I'm going to type in my username and then my really strong password, and hey, now I am in. Alright, so it looked a bit strange there, but actually it was just at the login prompt. Now, as you can see, I'm just in the server itself. It's pretty bare bones. There's no graphical user interface. I do have all the sort of basic tools for using a server all installed there, but what we want to do is install a graphical user interface. Now you can install whatever graphical interface you want. I'm going to install GNOME, which is probably the one that you're familiar with if you're using bare bones normal Ubuntu desktop. But you can install whatever you want. Okay, so let me just install GNOME desktop. So we need to use sudo as the we need to get into the super user, and we need to install GNOME. Now I'm just going to search for the correct GNOME, so bear with me. I think it's GNOME-desktop, but I might be wrong. That was a bad idea. Desktop. That was also a bad idea. Ubuntu-GNOME-desktop. You can see it there. They are called transitional packages. That should be fine for now. So I'm going to do sudo apt install Ubuntu-GNOME-desktop. And hopefully what that will do is bring in all the other packages that I need. I need the X window manager or Wayland or whatever it uses these days. I need all the default kind of tools that GNOME needs. It's not just the window manager itself, it's all the applications that it usually packages. So with this transitional package, or this meta package, it will have all these what are called dependencies, and it will install all of them for me as well. So it won't just install one package, it's going to install a whole heap of packages, which is the hope anyway. And before I do that, I want to actually update the package cache. So I do that with sudo apt update. I should have done that first, by the way, but not to worry. Sudo apt update, and assuming that that works, I can do that ampersand ampersand. So basically what the ampersand ampersand means is, as long as sudo apt update worked, I'll do the second command, which is sudo apt install Ubuntu GNOME desktop. Okay, let's do that now. So this first part here is just updating the package cache. That obviously worked because now it's given me this massive list of packages that it's going to install. If you're happy with that, then you press Y at this point, and you can see that it's going to download a massive amount of packages, and a massive amount of space will be used on the disk, 2.592 gig of space. So I just say yes to that. It's going to download all of that stuff, including some pretty bare bones stuff here. Systemd timesync D. I would have thought that systemd timesync would have already been installed. But anyway, there's some fonts, obviously. There's X11 Common, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to let that run through. It reckons it's going to take 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll save you from the boredom of that. And I'll come back to you when it's installed all of that, and then I'll show you what we need to do next. Alright, so that took a hot minute. That took a lot longer than I was actually expecting. It probably took the best part of an hour on this machine. Now it's asking, it's pretty much got to the end of the process. It's asking which services should be restarted. It's probably fine just to go OK to what you've got here, and then I press tab to go to OK, hit return on that. It's going to restart all of those particular services, the ones there. And you know what, for good measure, now that it's finished, I'm going to type in sudo reboot and just reboot the entire VM. Done. Okay, so that's going to reboot that particular VM. And then, with any luck, I'm going to restart and I'll have a desktop, like a normal desktop operating system. So let's just see what happens. I'm doing this live, as you can probably tell, so I'm not 100% sure if this will work. Yeah, okay, right, okay, so it has restarted, and you'll notice first of all, straight away, we have the Ubuntu Graphical Desktop Manager Login System, or GDM, which is awesome. So that's a really good sign. First of all, not necessarily saying it's going to work, but touch wood it will. So yeah, it's found out the default user on the system is me. So I'll hit return, pop in my password, and let's see if we get the graphical desktop. We frickin' do. So yeah, there you go. And this is like the first run system as well. This is what you see when you first run the Ubuntu desktop, which is awesome. So let's just go through that. Just make sure everything looks sweet. I don't care about location services. I don't care about looking into the Ubuntu software package repository. So yeah, that is really cool. We have the Ubuntu desktop, pretty much stock standard, and that's how to get the Ubuntu desktop on your Apple M1 or M2 Silicon machine. Something that isn't straight out of the box. You can't get an image, an official image for Ubuntu desktop from Canonical Ubuntu. So there you go, that's how to do it. Hope that has been a helpful video, and I'll see you in the next one. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up, it really does help. And if you would like to see more of my stuff, then please press that subscribe button. Got lots of stuff, various stuff about retro computing, some stuff like this, like Linuxy stuff. I've got some documentaries on the history of computing and lots of really good stuff that hopefully is really quality stuff. What else? Oh yeah, patreon.com. If you really like my stuff, then you can head over to patreon.com/alsgeeklab and hit me up there for a subscription. Now, subscriptions cost from as little as $3, and on that you get early access to all of the good content. You get your name up in credits at the end of every video, like these lovely people that should be flying past your screen right now. And you get lots of like sort of insider stuff, insider moments, like extra videos that will never see the light of day on YouTube. So there's lots of good reasons to head over there, and I've got some free preview perks just to have a look at to see what it's like on Patreon. So yeah, head over to patreon.com/alsgeeklab for the insider scoop, all the good stuff, and lots of extras as well as your name in lights. That's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time here on Al's Geek Lab.